Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Bob Anthony.
And I'm Alan Singer, zooming in from Crete, where it's the middle of the night. So if I yawn, I apologize.
Educator, historian, Dr. Alan Singer, definitely a regular with Media Watch, zooming in from Crete.
And appreciated.
Greatly
Very
appreciate it.
much so.
We're glad to see Raymond back with us.
Yeah.
Looking hale and hearty.
Yes, good to see you, Ray.
Fantastic.
Uh,
And,
Trying.
this is the Wednesday, October 8th, before our normal Monday airing, being brought to you by EVT Educational Productions, and should air on Manhattan Neighborhood Network next Monday about 5:30 p.m. or thereabouts. But it'll be up on YouTube and maybe Facebook and someplace else. Who knows? Uh, but um, this is a Wednesday, and there is so much stuff going on that's so illegal and so egregious, we don't really know how to start. But journalism and journalists under attack. We've seen the stories individually, but Bob, I think Richard Prince did have a litany of on his journalism's website of all the different assaults journalists encountered by or from ICE over the last week or so, with people being knocked down to ground. And this is after the woman was thrown to the ground 2 weeks ago. Subsequently, it was like that unleashed a whole barrage of stuff here in New York, Chicago, elsewhere, right?
I don't have that list in front of me, but right, it started out with the woman in New York City, and right here at 26 Federal Plaza, and that ICE agent was temporarily taken out of service, but he's back. He's reinstated, the guy who knocked down the woman. And then we had an attack. We had a couple journalists trying to get some information from people going into an elevator. An AM New York reporter, a Turkish reporter, and a female reporter, I believe.
Yep.
And they all got pushed down to the ground, with the Turkish reporter suffering a bad enough injury to his head that he had to have the emergency unit come and take him away. And then I just saw a video of a city council member in Chicago being handcuffed for trying to intervene in an ICE case in a federal building over there. They're out of hand. They're injuring without respect for the human body. Never mind if they had a problem with the journalists. People are getting injured just by doing their jobs as journalists, and in that Chicago case, as a public official.
Who are these people that are these so-called officers of the law? Where do they come from? Who
So
are they?
these are ICE
You know,
agents. These
yeah,
are
but
ICE agents. And my question,
where were they recruited from? The streets? Gangs? No, seriously, they act
No,
like thugs. I've dealt with thugs, and this is the way thugs act.
now
This is
have you
not
seen
the
those?
way
Have you seen those?
law-abiding officers work.
no,
Have you seen those TV commercials, Ray, offering $50,000 to law enforcement officers if they would join ICE? A
yeah,
lot of
No.
these people are like freshman ICE members, and they're, if you know what I'm saying.
trying to
So they're,
fast track.
yes,
Yeah.
they're fast tracked. So, and they're masked, and they're feeling they're exercising their capabilities.
Yeah, they think
So
that they are the supreme
here,
law. Do anything that
here,
they want to do.
how
Now,
do
will
you
Donald
have,
Trump be upset if we call them lice? Because they're really like an infection.
Sure.
Agreed.
I don't even want to be humorous about these gorillas. These MFs are
Right.
so egregiously physically assaulting people. Look, talk to us about not just ICE on journalists. Let's talk about ICE and raiding people from Black Hawk helicopters. Talk to us about this Chicago story.
Well, I'll start then. Just the last weekend, ICE raided an apartment building in Chicago where families were living. And they claimed it was a hideout for Venezuelan drug dealers. But when they broke in, they rappelled down from Black Hawk helicopters. And when they broke in, they just zip tied U.S. citizens who were living there. They threw children out of their homes. They held people in for hours. This was outrageous. And of course, they didn't have any warrants.
No
I
warrants.
couldn't wrap my heads around that story when I heard that. I mean, like I was saying before, isn't an apartment building in a city approachable from the sidewalk? Couldn't you walk up and surround the building and do what you needed to do? But
It's
no, they
more
had
dramatic to have guys rappelling down from helicopters.
absolutely, Ray.
You know?
Absolutely.
There you
The
go.
shock factor, the intimidation factor.
This is all made for TV, photo op BS, destroying people's rights and destroying constitutional norms. This is in keeping with the so-called president of the United States standing up in front
Don't even
of a
call it
room
that.
full of
Christ.
generals saying we need to use our cities as training grounds for your military. The president, so-called president of the United States, having the gall to stand up and say that to a room full of generals and admirals, that they should violate their oath of office that says they're not to use U.S. military forces in this country against the civilian population. He has the gall to stand up in front of a room full of them and tell them, use our cities as training grounds. So he's greenlit Kristi Noem, ICE, and Homeland Security people to use Black Hawk helicopters. And this is out of Stephen Miller's anti-human, anti-respect for law playbook. And that's
Trump is,
Go
he's
ahead.
now calling for the arrest of the mayor of Chicago and the governor of Illinois because they're not protecting ICE from protesters.
And the governor of Illinois is saying, you cannot federalize my guard without my okay, and I do not want you to federalize my National Guard because there is no emergency or need for you to do that. And that's why he's calling for him to be arrested. This man is totally out of control.
But he also had Texas National Guard invade Chicago, invade Illinois.
At
This
his
is an
behest.
invasion.
At his behest, not the governor of Illinois.
Right.
And this guy is destroying all constitutional norms. But that's in keeping with his lawlessness. If you segue back to his assault on journalists, when he's assaulting CBS, ABC, and sicking the FCC, what is his latest thing about the FCC and the media? Al Sharpton, what's that story?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just glanced at it. Trump wants the FCC to pull NBC's license because of what Al Sharpton said on, I believe, MSNBC, which is still part of NBC, but not for long.
Mhm.
But so based on, and he goes into some items in Sharpton's past, like the Tawana Brawley case from the 1980s in New York City, which we can't get into here, but he says that the license should be pulled for that fact that Sharpton had something to say, which is utterly ridiculous. But he has Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, basically in his pocket saying things like he said to ABC, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. So we have a big problem there.
This is part of controlling the media and trying to control the propaganda machine. Alan talked to us about the upper level echelons between Larry Ellison, Barry, CBS. Dig into that aspect of how they want to control the media.
Well, Larry Ellison is either the number one or the two richest person in the world. And Ellison and his son David have now taken control over Paramount Skydance, and that includes CBS. And they've appointed the chameleon-like Barry Weiss to a new post as editor-in-chief of CBS News. Now, Weiss claims to be a centrist, but is mostly an anti-left cynic, pro-Israel war hawk who calls herself a Zionist fanatic and a warrior against wokeness.
Those are our own words.
That's her set. That not only did they put her in charge of aspects of CBS News, but they also gave her a $150 million payout. They purchased her online free press, which it's not clear had any value, and they purchased it for $150 million. And this is all about getting themselves in closer with the Trump people. Oh, by the way, they also gave a $16 million shakedown payout to the Trump Presidential Library.
That's the Ellisons, so they could get their merger and get their thing. So,
yeah, and you're right, Alan. 150 million for the free press is absolutely wildly overpriced. I mean, I don't know if the New York Daily News is worth that right now, but to pay that for the free press, that's astounding. And that says a lot.
Off the ground, barely has any whatever.
It has readership, but it didn't, and it has paid subscribers, but nowhere close to that extent. She wasn't making anything like that.
$150 million.
No.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, okay, so that gets to the whole bit, because now with her as, quote, editor-in-chief at CBS News, that means all those news shows no longer have editorial independence if they've got to run what they plan to put on the air by her for her approval. Who knows what her approval is going to say if it goes up against Trump and MAGA and anything that doesn't fit her perspective of news. So the independence that these individual shows used to have on their own, different CBS News shows, is now into this one umbrella of a Barry Weiss stamp of approval. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, in the past, 60 Minutes was untouchable, absolutely untouchable. Whatever they did journalistically that they can prove and back up, they ran. I don't see that future at CBS.
Okay.
So what are journalists supposed to do? I mean, I understand, as a journalist, you're not going to work under those conditions. So what do? Form your own news network, your own paper, go to work for the independents that are still in existence for as long as they're going to be in existence. That's people in government who are in positions to do something are getting fired, or because of their personal integrity, they quit. What are we supposed to do if these people are not out there reporting what's going on or trying to use the law respectfully and legally? So I don't get it. I mean, I just don't know what we're going to do.
So if you have a following, you can go to, like Jim Acosta and Joy Reid, you can go to Substack and possibly make a living there. But that's rare. Very few people have that. I have a Substack, but I can't make that kind of money.
That's true. But journalists in the trenches are still trying to do their jobs. Now, did we talk about those reporters in Alaska? So
not yet.
These are the journalists on the front line who are still trying to do their jobs. Basically, these three reporters working for different outlets in Alaska, but all different outlets owned by some corporation and based in Alabama. Oh, I should have actually brought it up so I can tell our viewers who the corporation is. But while I'm telling the story, one of you guys might be able to look it up.
Well, I'll just say it quickly. The four journalists who worked for the Homer News, the Peninsula Clarion, and the Juneau Empire wrote a letter to the Alabama-based Carpenter Media Group. So that's the media group. Those are the papers. Go ahead.
They actually reported on the Charlie Kirk assassination and the fallout, etc. And in part of their reporting, they talked about exactly who Charlie Kirk was. And they called him a right-wing activist. And they mentioned the fact that he also trafficked in conspiracy theories and some of the other actually true things that he did for real, who he actually was. The people who were doing the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Alaska didn't like the fact that they reported accurately on who he was because they, quote, they were maligning him needlessly. even though they were reporting accurately. So local Alaska elected Republican officials statewide complained to the Alabama-based corporate people. They yanked the story. It disappeared for a while, then it popped back up online, and it had been totally changed. The attribution to who he was disappeared down in the bottom of the story and was changed from the actuality of who he was. And so the editor in charge of the online distribution of that stuff, when she saw what had happened, not only did her three reporters resign because they didn't like what had been done to their reporting, which totally negated their accurate journalism. As editor, she saw what had been done to their work and how she had edited and put it out. And she said, in all good conscience, I cannot work for this organization any longer. I too must resign. And so the rank and file journalists trying to do legit reporting, accurate stuff, are saying, no, we will not let you put propaganda out. We will try to do our jobs. And yes, you're right, they get fired. They may have to go to another outlet. They may have to start their own Substack. They may have to do whatever they need to do, but at least they're trying to stand up for true journalism. Now, the people in power, the Alabama, whomever, Carpenter, whomever, are basically MAGA affiliated corporate stuff. The mainstream media that a lot of people have been saying for years is all corporate media, all bought and paid for by the corporations. They don't seem to have the guts to stand up to the MAGA machine and the new people that are buying in, like the Larry Ellisons. And so the country as a whole is in a conundrum about how to get true, accurate reporting out to the general public.
Absolutely.
And it bothers me that they're reacting to the short term. Now, this Trump presidency ends in, what, 3.25 years. And so they're not looking down the road towards the future of their papers. They're just reacting to what's happening right now. I mean, if the Democrats can do something in next year in the midterms, then things that might loosen. But they're knee-jerk reacting instead of defending their industry.
Okay.
The Trump people are following the Viktor Orban strategy for Hungary. And what Orban did is he basically destroyed an independent media by having his people buy it up, silencing people, getting people fired. Eventually, everybody else is just scared to oppose him. And the Trump people are following that strategy. They're also following 2025. Remember, Trump claimed that during the election, he never heard of Project 2025. Well, Russell Vought, who wrote much of 2025, is now the head of his Office of Management and Budget, and he's responsible for cutting social programs because of the impasse in Washington. So they're following very clear strategies to how to end democracy in the United States, and the press is one of their main targets.
Okay, so that's a good picture to paint because it's not just the press that they're going after. They are going after the Democratic Party by trying to demonize them, trying to cut organizations that fund them, and they're using the power of the government to go after their, quote, perceived enemies. So you get Pam Bondi, who's supposed to be testifying before a Senate committee, and she doesn't testify. She says, what did you tell Donald Trump that he was in the Jeffrey Epstein's file? That's one question. She goes, I'm not going to answer that question. Did you show X, Y, and Z about such and such? I'm not going to answer that question. So you have enablers trying to assist this man into turning this country into an autocracy. Let's dig into the fact that he complained to that same attorney general about not having filed any charges against the former director of the FBI, James Comey. What happened?
Oh, God.
Somebody.
Today Comey pleaded not guilty, and
he was actually indicted.
Yes, he was indicted. Yeah.
After the president said, "Why haven't you indicted this man to his attorney general?"
over something that happened 5 years ago, correct?
That they could not find enough grounds for indictment, and
at
other
that time.
U.S. attorneys said, there's nothing there, we're not
Yes.
filing an indictment. He
Yes.
hires a new U.S. attorney, they indict Comey.
Yes.
And Pam Bondi is the attorney general that allowed that to happen. She didn't want
Well,
to answer that question during that Senate hearing, did she? She just basically went up to Capitol Hill and stonewall all those senators.
well, the new attorney who indicted Comey is actually very highly qualified. She was third runner-up, Miss Colorado, and then she was Donald Trump's personal lawyer.
Yeah.
And she's a blonde.
And I mean, again, we find these characters all over his administration. People who never did things suddenly popping up in positions where they shouldn't be, like our French ambassador, our ambassador to France, who doesn't speak French. But go ahead.
No, but Alan is a historian. You walk us through the fact of this autocratic playbook, because there are other things in our list of stuff to talk about where no habeas corpus rights. Their U.S. attorneys are going before the Supreme Court and say these people don't have any habeas corpus rights because they're not U.S. citizens. And so they don't have a right to demand that you can adjudicate their hearings here in court. They got to go to immigration court, and they've got no, and we can deport them while they're supposedly hearing in, and it's uncalled for. It's unconstitutional. But that's just another example of how these people are using the quote law illegally,
Yeah.
further their autocratic agenda. Any
Well,
other example?
the key thing is under the 14th Amendment, due process is guaranteed to persons. It is not limited to citizens. And that's something that the Trump administration has been violating. But what they've been claiming is that, well, in 1807, Congress passed an Insurrection Act that granted the president emergency power to deploy troops on U.S. soil to quell widespread public arrest and support civilian law enforcement.
Public unrest, yes.
But there is no widespread unrest. As a matter of fact, in Portland, Oregon, the unrest happened because of the actions of ICE, not because the demonstrators were doing things before ICE came. So there's no widespread unrest anywhere. State and local officials have denounced Trump's move as illegal abuse of presidential power. But he does it anyway. That's what's so frightening. He does it anyway.
So Stephen Miller, his deputy in command or chief of staff or whatever, keeps talking about insurrection in the cities, democratic cities. That's his key word, insurrection, unrest and insurrection. And basically, he is trying to goad this guy in the White House into invoking this Insurrection Act, which is why he keeps mouthing out about unrest and insurrection where it does not exist. And so the question for me is, how do these governors, mayors, and whomever in these municipalities push back legally through the courts to stop this man from trying to pretend and prevail? Because basically it's a propaganda war that they're using these phrases and these terms to try to make non-thinking voters think that there's an insurrection going on in our country, and this wacko who is not mentally competent, I'm going to say it right now on Media Watch, this man has lost his mental acuity. They should be invoking, what is it, the 26th Amendment about an incompetent president, except I don't trust the vice president that would be stepping in.
Precisely.
Worse than the guy that's there now.
Yep.
But we've got a problem that these people are backing a wacko to try to turn this country into an autocracy.
Yeah.
There is an insurrection in the United States, but it's an insurrection being led by Donald Trump, his allies, and people like Stephen Miller.
And
You know,
just to keep us on track in case we have other stuff to bring up, we have about 2.5 minutes left.
2.5 minutes. I was just going to quickly say, if I were a foreign entity, a bad actor, I'd be thinking that this is a good time to attack America because nobody's watching the goddamn store. Too busy
Well,
doing
they
stuff.
lost their opportunity when the wacko in the Department of Defense, who claimed he's a Secretary of War, not a Secretary of Defense,
Right.
called all the generals and their second in command to Washington, D.C., so he could give them a quote pep talk. And I don't know if you guys saw the photos of those generals in that room.
Yeah, they did.
They
They look like
sat
statues.
there pretty much
Yes.
stone faced,
Yes.
watching these clowns, these dodos, these draft dodging Hollywood wannabe warriors try to tell seasoned generals, admirals, and people who have been in the trenches how they need to get a warrior ethic and how they need to get themselves in shape. And those generals sat there pretty much stone faced. They didn't fall
Statues
for any
was
of the
the right word, Ray.
one-liners. They didn't fall for any of the laugh lines. They sat there looking at the clowns on the stage. They mean they drilled them. I looked at those photos. I'm saying, back in the day when I was in the military, if I'd been anywhere near that room, I'd have been drilling them with my eyes, wanting to drill them with more than my eyes. Those wacko clowns pretending. I was sick of that. But anyway, we're almost out of time. Wrap it up, guys. What do we do? What do we tell our people? We can't just sit here saying, woe is me.
Right.
Well, I mean, journalists, just keep at it. Don't give up. I agree with Ray. Just keep at it.
Yep, keep at it. And every citizen has to shout out, use your voice, protest, get out in the street. They can't kill us all. They can't lock us all up.
All right.
That's a
I like
fact.
what you said before. Whether you're a man or a woman, you got to grow a set of balls.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, well,
Yes.
yeah, I'm not allowed.
Yes.
Wasn't allowed to say that.
How much time we got left? Do we?
We're about 30 seconds, less than that, actually.
Anyway, look, folks. Raymond, glad you're back. Glad you're as feisty as ever.
Glad to be back. No, even more
Alan?
so, man. Even more so. I got to tell you, I'm tired of this shit.
Alan, you travel safely, get back home safely. With these air traffic controllers working without pay, I'm worried about my daughter trying to come back from Europe over the next weekend or so. But anyway,
And with that,
this has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Eric Tait.
I'm Raymond Peterson.
I'm Alan Singer.
And I'm Bob Anthony. Catch up to us on YouTube at Media Watch EVT.
And we'll catch you the next time, folks. Stay safe.